if I could give a prize for most unexpected cultural impact, Spelunker is the game that would take it. It started out as a pretty solid, though unremarkable computer action game. The kind of thing where the really weird old nerds would know about it, but it would have been almost completely forgotten. And then it got a Famicom release. The game was a big seller, but not really a monster hit of the Famicom era, selling about 400,000 copies. Keep in mind that at this point, even the worst Famicom games were selling a few 100,000 copies. Apparently, Japanese players didn't know what Spelunker meant, but the game seems to have made an impression. Once retro gaming became a thing, Spelunker quickly became infamous for the fragility of the hero. But even though the game got fresh attention from mocking it, people started playing and going, hang on, this is actually good. And Spelunker has gotten a bit of a re-evaluation in recent years. The goal of the game is simple. Get to the end of the caves and collect as much treasure as you can. Your intrepid cave explorer can jump, plant bombs, shoot flares, and fire a jet of air. You have limited air yourself, and firing that jet takes up some of that precious oxygen. The thing that makes Spelunker difficult is that everything is fatal. Well, almost everything. You can stumble on these rocks, but anything else you touch, fatal. And most critically, you can only fall about your body height before you die. Now, even though this was common in a lot of early platformers, like Donkey Kong, 21st century players have tended to react badly to it. But hey, avoiding falling is just part of the game, even though sometimes it's kind of questionable. Which brings me to my first gameplay tip. Don't walk, jump. You'll fall through even the tiniest gap, so until you're really confident that you can just walk off something, jump. The controls are simple enough. A to jump, B to use one of your tools. You enter the cave with nothing but your air gun, and so you'll have to collect supplies while you're in there. These items are flares. Press up and B to shoot one above you. They're useful for taking out the bats that poop on you. You can dodge the poop sometimes and get underneath the bats, but it's not always an easy thing to do, and a flare will just take them out immediately. Naturally, you can get hit by the flare as it comes down. Also, the bats respawn as soon as the flare is gone, so you'll often have to use one flare to get into an area and another flare to get out. Bombs clear out these big rocks. You use them by pressing down and hitting B. Standing too close to the bomb will get you as well, but there isn't a visible explosion radius. The important thing is just get out of there. The purpose of the air gun is to dissipate the ghost that appears sometimes. You're rooted in the spot when you're shooting the air gun, but you can change what direction you're facing. You'll hear a musical sting when the ghost is inbound. The air gun has a limited range, roughly about half the screen distance, but the ghost only has to be hit for an instant before it starts to dissipate. It will slowly fade out once it's been hit, and it can still hurt you if it reaches you before it's faded out completely. If you hear the sting and don't see the ghost approaching, it's approaching from off screen, and the best option is to fire the air gun and just change what direction you're facing. This way you cover both sides. Technically, you don't need to pick up the money in the cave, and in fact, if you're just learning how to play, it can be better to just ignore it. That said, the individual coins are worth much more than the bags of money. Air is replenished by these fountains. They always refill you all the way back up to the top. A useful tip is to try to avoid them for a while if you can. If you have to double back and there's an air fountain on your path, saving it for when you're lower is the better choice. The real thing that you want to collect are these keys. You have to collect all of the keys to escape a cave section. The last item you can collect are these stars, which are miracles. They're kind of random, kind of not. The miracle can contain any of the other items other than the keys, and you won't know what it is until you collect it. The miracles are randomized when you power on the game or hit reset. If you get a game over and then start again, then the miracles will be exactly the same. I have to talk about the worst thing in Spelunker now, and that's how jumping off ladders and ropes sometimes feels awkward. Some people call it a dropped input, but it's not really. First, you have to press the direction and jump at the same time. If your timing is off, then you've got a problem. Second, if you are too low or too high on the rope or vine, then the game doesn't have enough room to go into the jumping animation and you just fall off of it. So it can be a little bit tricky, and it winds up looking a lot worse than it actually is. As the poster child for how difficult old games could be, Spelunker has a lot of follow-ups. The most direct one for this project is Spelunker 2. That was all the new Spelunker for a couple of decades. And then the revival happened and things really exploded. How about 2 novelizations of the game? A stage adaptation. A cartoon where the Spelunker is teaching high school for some reason. And a whole series of modern sequels involving online multiplayer. I think the reason that Spelunker stuck is that in the end, it really is a solid game. As of December 1985, it's the second best platformer on the Famicom. It may be hard as hell, but it also generally plays fair. Death isn't much of a setback in Spelunker. You respawn a short distance away and dust yourself off to try again. You learn your lesson and do a bit better next time. It's a challenging game, but not unreasonably so.